Ladies and gentlemen, we please give a very warm welcome to Sue Essex.
Well, Ariane, thank you very much for that. I don't think I can live up to that billing. I don't think it was superpowers. It was the good old Arriva trains that got me backwards and forwards. And just to make sure that we remember, it wasn't just me. It was Bob Smith and Peter Williams, and of course the lovely Lisa Dobbins sitting there that made up the team that did the review. I'm very aware that this is the end of a long, long day, and you're looking at this, look at co-creation, and probably, you're starting to sink a little bit. So I'm going to do something snappy. I've just promised Chris and Mara we'll do something snappy. The other reason it's going to be snappy is I've lost my notes somewhere, so it will be, it's snappy. And I'm going to substitute the word co-creation for the phrase, it's good to talk. Anyone remember where Bob Hoskins came from? Yeah, these little, see, look where it took Bob Hoskins, that phrase, it's good to talk. He did, that whole thing was about literacy, and he absolutely went to the top. But I think a lot of what we're about is in that phrase, it's good to talk, because speaking to people about when things work and when it doesn't work, often the lubrication of all this is that people are having conversations. And I would say that in the housing field, that works pretty well because, in general, there's an empathy that's there between you. It may come from different sectors, but there is a willingness there to work together. I think the magic word co-creation, there is a PSNW publication around co-creation, you'll be very pleased to know. I couldn't find it, but it is there. But it's a simple concept really, isn't it? It's about working together from beginning to end with a common purpose, with shared responsibility. That's what it's about. But it's still a relatively new concept for government. It's been there before. We've got some very good examples in Wales. Going back 20 years, the Children's and Young Persons Act, there's been some good work around that concept. But it's a big step away from where government traditionally, the way that government traditionally works. And it wasn't so long ago, then, in my working lifetime, when I first worked for a local authority and I talked about, I didn't use the term public participation, because, nobody would have known what the hell I meant if I'd said public participation. It's true, we'd be talking to people out on the ground and, wow, that was a kind of real shock. Well, that's what councillors are for, that's what we're elected for, we don't need other people to go out talking on the ground. And there was that general feeling that, that kind of paternalistic feeling that councils and government knew best, and the elected members were there to interpret that now and again. And that's what you did. And then we moved on from that, about 30 odd years ago, Skeffington, when it came in that the public wanted a right to say. But when I first came into the Assembly government, new government then, the concept was not co-creation as we would understand it now. It's very much, we're defining the problems, we'll put together a document that perhaps might have a couple of options, and then we'll go out for consultation. And very often, whatever the consultation said, I'm giving away a few secrets here, you still got the same answer at the end. The civil servants will say there was general approval for the options that we discussed, all the things we discussed, and most approval was around option one, and blah, 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 blah. And I always used to say, can I see what people have sent back first? And it was kind of shock. And then when you read what people have sent back, it wasn't quite like that. But that was seen as the way of involving people and consultation with local government or consultation with the housing association, whatever it was. And so I think it was such a massive step when you say, actually, you don't do it that way anymore. You don't introduce people at that stage along the line. These people know so much. They've got an interest, they've got a stake, they've got views, they've got experience. So really, we all need to get together at the beginning. And so we use that term co-creation, but it is a massive change, I think, in the way that government has acted in the past. And this way, I think there's so much riding on what comes out of this and what we can do. The sort of system we've used and the process we've used hasn't been perfect. There's been some glitches over that time, and it would be wrong for me to stand here and say we've got all the answers. But I do hope that the way we went about the review, and that's Peter, Bob, Lisa and myself, was about trying to involve as many people as possible so we can actually hear from people what their view was right at the beginning. So yes, we had terms of reference from the Minister, and I think she should be commended for actually running really with this. And she did, in fairness, say, basically, these are my things that I want, but then anything else that you want to put as well, which gave us that great opportunity to actually open the Pandora's box, as I called it. Open the Pandora's box so we could talk to people who'd had grievances, ideas, frustrations, or seen opportunities for a long, long time. And opening that Pandora's box was that attempt at co-creation in a way. Because we then felt that whatever happened, the 43 recommendations, and Nick's the only one who knows them off by heart, he'll quote them at me every so often. But those recommendations are really there to do justice to all the comments and the queries and the ideas that had come in. So I kind of hope that that report in itself, although it wasn't, in fairness, termed as co-creation, and none of us used that word while we were doing it, but I do hope that that became a vehicle for all of you in this room to actually think, yes, we're part of that, we've had that say. And that conference we had a year ago in the park just down the road, I've never been to a conference that had so much unanimity around it. It was just fantastic. I came out, I just couldn't believe it, because it was very timely, wasn't it? And people could see that they'd had a voice and it had been expressed and it had been taken forward. And then the big thing that people said to me was, oh yeah, Sue, but isn't going to happen. And I don't care where it was in Wales, wherever I went, somebody'd say, yeah, you've got the review, and then they'd say, but is it going to happen with the inference? No, it isn't going to happen. This is going to be the Welsh Assembly government's going to go put on the shelf, and that will be it. All very nice. We've had our say, all our hopes have been raised, all the expectations come in, and that's what will happen to it. But I think people were kind of taken by surprise when the first thing that Jocelyn said was, we're going to implement the recommendations, and then Matthew Quinn, to his credit, said, and this is the way we're going to do it. It's going to be around the partnership that we've been looking at in the review, the opportunity now to involve all those people and take that forward. And the way that it was taken forward have been really an interesting model. I'm not saying it's the only model, I'm not saying it didn't have its problems with it, but the great wheeze that Matthew had was not only to put Lisa working within the review team, he then did the dirty on her really much, and he said, right, I want you to lead the programme. So there was that continuity there. So the programme that was put forward and the idea of having work streams which involved everyone, not just CHC, not just the Welsh Assembly government officials, not just local government, but organisations like the tenants' organisations, Housemark, Shelter, a whole range, CIH, Chartered Institute of Housing, a whole range of organisations, and I think some very talented individuals that we have in Wales, our housing experts, came in and gave their time. And so what we were managing to do was, as a government, be quite clever, because, well, I'm not government anymore, but I mean, as the government was quite clever, because it could actually say, we don't know all the answers here, we've got the review as a context, but you out there in your different ways actually have got some answers. So the pulling together of all the skills and experience and knowledge and ideas, actually the sum of that was so much greater than what we originally saw in the recommendations. And this is the idea when Rodri says smart Wales. This is one of the things I honestly believe in. If you're a minister, or even if you're civil servant, you haven't got all the answers. There's no way you can. But there's people outside that do have ideas that you can pull in, who can be part of that, and who can share and should be recognised, and should be recognised for the contribution they made. So the way of drawing those work streams together, some good chairs who took responsibility, pulling that together and coming out with ideas, and where we didn't have all the ideas, that really important bit of a little bit of money that went to this, and we can't underestimate that, the change money that came in. So as Kath Palmer said this morning, We can go out and commission someone to do work around the HRA. We can commission somebody to go out and do a little work around tenure or whatever it may be.